Hey everyone, in my latest podcast, I sit down with the CEO from the psychedelic space that just made a major acquisition that now puts them into the conversation with one of the top three companies in the industry. Who is it? Find out now in my latest podcast.
Cobb, what's going on, bro?
Hey everyone, welcome to the Dales Report and happy to be joined here in the podcast once again. Payton Nyquvest, CEO of Numinus Wellness, which trades on the TSX under the ticker symbol NUMI. Good day, sir. How are things?
Things are good. Things are good. How are you?
I am excellent. Let's get right into it. Last Friday, press release news, which outlined the official closing of Novamind following Novamind's receipt of a final order from the BC Supreme Court. As we touched on last month, this now gives you, Numinus, full control of 13 wellness clinics, 4 clinical research facilities, and a dedicated psychedelics research lab. What's the statement that you want to communicate today to both your institutional and retail investors, knowing that this acquisition is now complete?
Yeah, I think it continues with our commitment around scaling out this platform and really where we see value being created within the psychedelic space. We're now without question the top revenue generating company in the space, but also with a very clear path to profitability. And with this acquisition, it just really brings up the efficiencies and improves the margins as well. So we just continue to build that platform. And then obviously, with bringing on the Novamind folks, a host of other really exciting research projects that we have underway. And I think just in regards to the actual acquisition itself, in terms of the voting that we had, there was over 99% positive or people in favor of the acquisition, which really just
Yeah.
shows, that Numinus, we believe is really the preferred consolidator and acquirer in the space.
So diversification and cash runway, as we've talked about in the past, are probably the top two priorities in this space to have a long, sustainable business model. You have both of those. Most CEOs would say yes when it comes to a question is in with this acquisition. Do you belong in the top two or three companies in that conversation within this industry? Do you believe that? And if so, explain why.
Yeah, to your point, of course, I'm going to say yes.
Of course.
I think I think this space has grown and educated itself in terms of as I said, where value is going to be created, and I think
Yeah.
we're at the precipice of a really interesting regulatory environment at the moment. Canada, continues to make big leaps in regards to providing accessibility to MDMA and psilocybin. You've got, MAPS expected to have MDMA legal shortly. We're obviously very, very close working with them and we'll be ready to go with MDMA. And you've just continued to see the value and necessity of being able to actually offer these different treatments within a therapeutic setting while still having good strong infrastructure and foundations with just traditional mental health treatment.
Yeah. As CEO, when you look at this closing of this acquisition, I have to ask what will be the immediate priorities to create, I guess, the most efficient synergies between the two companies?
Yeah,
I
I
should
mean,
say one now, but you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, the efficiencies, obviously, with the work that we've been already doing at Numinous, there's lots of corporate synergies as well. So we have a very robust, marketing team, finance, all things that, Novamind and to their credit had built an amazing company really
Mhm.
on a shoestring budget. And for us to be able to bring the resources that we have to really make it run more efficiently, integrate very, very well, and then be able to grow it and scale it from where it is today in short order. That's really the big focus over the next little bit.
Well, shoestring budget or not, I look at your pipeline now. It's pretty impressive. So you inherit a phase 2 clinical trial investigating psilocybin for major depressive disorder, which is sponsored by the USANA Institute, which is big. As well, Novamind's participation in MindMed's phase 2B randomized clinical trial investigating LSD for what's called generalized anxiety disorder, otherwise known as GAD. So when you add in your current trials, combined with everything that I've just outlined, do you feel that you've sufficiently diversified a tier one clinical research organization?
Yeah, I think not only diversified, but if you look at who Novamind and Numinus previous, the organizations we're working with, you mentioned USONA, MindMed,
Yeah.
MAPS, we're working in collaboration with pretty much every other major stakeholder in the space. And as such, we're also able to continue to innovate and ideate the platform that we're creating to be ready for all of these other compounds that all these groups are doing research on that are very good quickly going to need a distribution channel for. And so it really just brings up the scale in which we're able to operate and just how many different compounds we're going to be prepared for when they become available.
Has producing your own drug development trials ever crossed your mind? Is that something that you could pursue?
It's something we could. Obviously the market at the moment is challenging
Yeah.
and development is long and expensive.
Yeah.
I think we've been smart in collaborating with groups to bring these drugs through clinical trials, but also being prepared to actually be able to distribute them. And
Hmm.
that's really where our focus has been. And again, I think in a regulatory environment that you're seeing a very large amount of support. You've got Oregon going legal this year. California is looking like it could potentially go the same way as Oregon has gone. Um, so I think in knowing that, there's just a lot of work to be done to just build the service platform, which for us is great. It generates revenue. It shows profitability, and you don't have to have the kind of overhead and frankly risk profile of a full-blown FDA clinical trial, which
Yeah.
is $100 million and no guarantees. So
You talked about Oregon and California. The clinics itself, the 13, they're in Utah, Arizona, and what other state is it again?
Utah and Arizona right now.
Utah and Arizona. Do you look to expand, as in like two states, like you just said, in Oregon and California eventually?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely be looking to expand into other states. Keeping a very close eye on what's happening with regulation,
How
and
difficult is, or I don't want to say difficult, but what's the process of like starting or new clinics in new markets? Like, what is the timeline involved in something like that?
yeah, for us, we've really wanted it to be a pull versus push kind of expansion plan if we were going to build something new. Obviously, acquisitions are a little bit different, but
Hmm.
to enter new markets, especially with some of the services, not just ketamine assisted psychotherapy, but just the other mental health services. Um, you want there to be a draw and a pull to where you're going, so that when you do set up, there's interest in what you're doing, and there's clients that are ready. We've thrown some events in the past in
Don't all
California.
signs point in that direction, though, from what you're seeing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the one thing that the Novamind folks did that was really, really smart as well is they've got a host of insurance providers that are covering a lot of
Mm.
their ketamine services, which really that's a nut that other groups really haven't been able to crack yet. So to be able to take that and into new markets is huge. So that's definitely what we'll be looking to do over the next little bit. But first and foremost, get this acquisition integrated into the Numinus ecosystem.
Does it change from state to state as far as insurance coverage?
So that there's a little bit of state by state insurance coverage, and then there's across the country as
Right,
well.
right. Um, with the press release, I want to talk about from Friday. You also outlined how you've appointed Reed Robison as your chief clinical officer and Paul Thielking as your
Mhm.
chief science officer. Can you explain what's impressed you most about these two and why it made sense to obviously bring them aboard and, like I said,
Yeah.
have two prominent titles within the company?
Yeah. Starting with Reed, who Reed is kind of a household name in the US in regards to mental health and especially the intersection of psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. Paul and the work that they've done in putting the research work together as well. As I mentioned, have built an amazing organization, again on a shoestring budget compared to
Mm-hmm.
some of the money that other groups have raised. And we're really, really excited to be able to have them as a part of the executive team and really helping inform as we move into the US in particular. Numinus previously, all of our operations were in Canada. So to have people that have a really, really strong track record of not only business operations, but the work that they've done in clinical research is really, really astounding. So to have them on the team is
Great.
a huge, huge benefit. You know.
Last thing I wanted to touch on was our podcast from last week with Ben, yourself, and myself, when we talked about how the prolonged weakness in the capital market side has led to a steep drop in asset prices for psychedelic companies and the value of the assets they carry. We look back. Here's a company like yourself, very well capitalized. Um, you look at the overall expansion, and you and I have talked about mergers and acquisitions and how companies that are cashed up are really going to build out their portfolio even more. I have to ask,
Mhm.
like during these times, is it very advantageous as to like, did that play a role in this acquisition, knowing the steep drop in asset prices as to what we've seen, especially over the last 6 months in this industry?
Yeah, we've looked at majority of the things that are out there in the space at the moment, and the Novamind acquisition was just a
Made
total
sense.
no-brainer for us. Made a ton of sense. I think there's other opportunities that are out there. We're in a very fortunate position and being well capitalized and have a very good organizational structure to be able to now onboard. We've now done a bunch of different acquisitions. We've got a good playbook for how to integrate acquisitions and have them be accretive kind of day one. So we are going to look at other acquisitions, but the Novamind one just was head and shoulders above most of everything else that we'd seen in the space.
Last message out to your investment community. What excites you the most about your company over the next 6 months?
We've got so much exciting work going on, whether, as we talked about the maps work, USONA, continuing to see the growth of the clinic platform, continuing to see efficiencies grow, continue to see margins grow, just in a really, really exciting time.
Hmm.
And really overshadowed by some of the regulatory stuff we're seeing. We've gotten our first approval for psilocybin under the Special Access Drug Program. I think you could probably see something sooner than later, similarly with MDMA assisted
Yeah,
psychotherapy. And the next 6 months and going into 2023, which is going to be, I think, a huge year for regulation change in the space. Just continuing
I, s-
to really get ourselves organized for that.
I see it now. I really see
Yeah,
it now. Like it's like the masks are coming off, people are getting back to normal, but you see the consequences, like of what
yeah,
a pandemic has done and the cost of
yeah.
living. It's like there's a lot of people that are struggling right now. But again, congrats obviously on the acquisition. I know you've done a ton of work over the last few months, so go give yourself a 6 minute break and then get back to work, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
great checking in. Thanks, Peyton. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you like this video, wait until you see what we have next. Some of the best thought leaders in the verticals that we cover, from cannabis and psychedelics to cryptos and NFTs and sports wagering. So if you want to learn more, make sure to click on that bell for all notifications and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.